Hey friends, I every once in a while I'll have this flash that sort of indicates, well, here's what I might look at. Here's what might be interesting to me as a topic to discuss on my post. And every once in a while I'll have that happen, and then I'll be like, this is so obvious. It's like, can I actually say this out loud? Can I actually propose this even to myself? Because today the thing that came to me, I had a really fantastic conversation with my wife yesterday, and it was one of those moments where I could tell there were a few things that just needed to be talked about. We just needed communication, and it was like I already kind of knew. You know how you sometimes you kind of know that you're in agreement, that you already share at least the overwhelming majority of the assumptions or desired outcomes. You're on the same page. You're on 90 to 95% of the same pages, but you haven't made it explicit. You haven't actually said it. You haven't actually even, because the thing is, everybody's got their own filter, right? I've got my own way of being on a certain page, and I can be on the same page with somebody else, but that doesn't mean I'll express it the same way. And over time, if that communication doesn't happen or isn't lining up, even overwhelming agreement can start to feel like, well, is this agreement or is it not? Or it's like the minutia. It's almost like a veil, or it's like dirt on the windshield can make the landscape look different, right? It's like something so small and seemingly, insignificant, but it has a dramatic effect of making an entire world look different. And we had a really nice, um, a really great conversation in which, I would say, in a lot of ways, we already kind of really did know we were on the same page before the conversation, but there was a way in which unpacking it all was a lot of fun. And it left me reminded of how much transpires in my mind, and how that's such a separate experience from being in communication. I've been watching Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, John Vervaeke's YouTube series, and it's this incredible adventure through the world of what he calls psychotechnologies, the way the mind works. And it's such an incredible survey of interior processes. It's almost like there's a universe, which we all know there is a universe inside of our mind, inside of our consciousness, certainly. There's a universe. And we can explore it, we can inhabit it, we can make discoveries there. And as somebody who loves that, I could just watch this guy for hours on end. I've got a surgery coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm already looking forward to just like turning on the episodes and just having nothing to do other than lie in bed and watch these things. So I'm like looking forward to this, because I am I'm a sucker for an interior investigation. I enjoy it. I derive massive value from it. It affects how I feel about the world, how I am in the world. All of which is to say, I sometimes underappreciate the importance and the value and the joy of communication. See what I mean? Why I was like, this is really what I'm gonna go and say. Like communication with people outside myself. Like, wow, what an amazing thing! How cool! Has anybody else discovered this? Like, there is almost that kind of like innocent epiphany that I sometimes have when it becomes clear in a dialogue that simply by truly investing in communication, truly investing in not just having really interesting thoughts or or developing beautiful and elegant understandings of how the mind works and how the world works and how people work and how consciousness works, right? Like that all of that being what it is, there's this element of what happens when I open my mouth and I speak to someone else. And this post is honestly, it's part of how I almost feel like it's like my going to the gym for communication. Because even though I'm talking to my phone, I know people are listening. I know you are listening. I receive feedback, right? It's a mediated exchange because there's technology involved. There's a middleman, but it's still a real connection. And I practice externalizing what is going on in my mind, and then, but obviously that's very different than speaking to another human being, where it's like it's not a mediated connection. It's a direct connection. It's an actual like consciousness to consciousness meeting. And like I said, I can sometimes underappreciate that. I think I do a pretty good job of maintaining some awareness of it and being like remembering that it's important, but it's just interesting to note my own proclivities, to note what I naturally value, and to observe how exciting and how almost transformative it can be to get my communication going beyond myself, and not just any communication. Right? Obviously, I talk to my wife every day. I talk to my child every day. I talk to all kinds of people every day. But I don't. But that's not, and of course that's a form of communication. But I'm talking about when you go to a deep place, a place where it's the kind of thinking and the kind of processing that habitually or customarily happens internally, and start to let some of that out, and all of a sudden you're saying things that have happened in your mind, and they take on a new feeling. They feel different. It feels different to communicate something than it does to think it. Wow, what a discovery, right? And yet I would actually sort of submit that that's a worthwhile observation, because it can really feel like if like our thoughts are true until we say them out loud, and then all of a sudden we realize, oh man, no, my thoughts are just, or they're, even if we don't believe that they're literally true, we know our thoughts are amorphous approximated concepts of reality, but we think they have a clear meaning to us, and then we start to communicate them, and all of a sudden it's like, even before the other person has responded, it's like, oh, I can see why this is these are more fluid than I thought they were, as I was thinking them to myself so emphatically just a moment ago. And that experience can be, I think there's an element of humility that we learn from that, but there's also just a really profound level of discovery that can take place when we realize meaning happens. What am I trying to say? It's like meaning is a shared experience. Meaning can be a shared experience. Meaning can be an internal, an interior. One consciousness can perceive meaning, can create meaning, but meaning can also be shared, and it can be transmitted, and it's created by communication. What I say, what is heard, what comes back, what I hear, what I feel, how I respond. It's meaning doesn't reside in me or in the other person. It comes out of it's almost like we co-discover it as communication happens. And I think that's one of the most amazing aspects of being human. For me, it's one of the most just untouchable and powerful aspects of being in a deep and committed relationship, is knowing, you think you know someone so well because you lived with them for years, and yet then you create a whole new kind of meaning together in a moment. And all of the background that you have is both a container for that. It provides context for that, but it is also fully transcended. Our background is transcended in deep communication. Our shared background with another human being, everything can change in a moment through a kind of mutual understanding, that process of coming to mutual understanding. The philosopher Habermas used to go on about that mutual understanding as the kind of one of the key elements of meaning making in human cognition, shared understanding. And I cannot purport to quote Habermas, but my experience of that is that it's the mutual understanding happens out here. It's not happening in me. It's not happening in them. It's happening. It's almost like this thing emerges, this other thing emerges that we're independent of and that transcends us, which is why our background is only really part of getting it going. It doesn't determine what is created. Kind of like having a child, come to think of it. So, again, yes, communication is amazing. Like, that's the deep thought of the day. But it actually is the deep thought of my day. So that's what I got today, folks. That's what I had to share. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Send me if this somehow sparked anything for you, or if you think it's completely mundane. Leave me a comment. Let me know if this sparks anything in your own experience or inspires anything in your own, drawing on your own experience. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Have a great day. See you soon.